morning. Take a minute. I would love everybody to just sit back for a second. Close your eyes. Find a comfortable, calm, peaceful seat, if you can, in bleachers. And I just want you to take some good, deep breaths. Just fill your lungs. Kind of let go a little bit. And take another one. And inhale. And exhale. And while your eyes are closed and you're breathing, I want you to think about the place in your body that speaks to you. It's where the Holy Spirit resides. And it's where our intuition tells us what's right and wrong. It's that part of all of us that if we take the time and we sit back and we listen, it tells us exactly what the right thing to do is. So one more deep breath. And open your eyes. I find in general life gets really busy. And we get really hectic and chaotic, and you guys have so much going on. I hear finals are coming up, and you're running from class to class, and it's really easy to get distracted from exactly what we need to listen to most. And I say this because I love the theme of your week, give voice. But we have to be able to listen to where that voice is before we can give it. We have to know what we want to say. And having ways that we can do that through prayer, through community, through just sitting and breathing is a great way to start. So thank you so much for having me here today. It's a privilege and honor. I have several friends who graduated from Biola, and it's just great to be with all of you this morning. I want to take a moment and share a little bit about my story. And my story has a lot to do with finding my own voice. I, as you heard, was a victim of sexual assault as a teenager in my youth choir at church. I had a great, amazing music minister that I was in band and choir, and he was spiritual director and mentor to me for many years. And then right after my 16th birthday, he decided that I needed to be more than just his student. And I was molested. I did go to the church. I did tell, I was Catholic, went to the priest, told him what had happened, and they sent him away for a month, and then he came back, and then I was asked to leave the choir, and things continued, and I felt like I had said something and I wasn't heard, so I didn't go back and say any more. And unfortunately, that pain from that wound when I was 16 only seemed to get more and more painful. It festered over the years. And when I was about 22, I decided, a lot of other victims started to come forward, and I thought, you know what, I feel like my story should be shared or should be heard, and maybe I could help other people. And I kind of got told that really what I should be thinking about was his family and not me. And I didn't feel right about that, but I thought, okay, well, I don't want to say anything. I don't want to upset his family. So I didn't. And then 6 years later, I was 28 years old, and came forward to me that somebody else might be being abused by the same person. And immediately I said, okay, I have to say something. It was not even a decision. It wasn't even a thought. It was okay, I must act. And it was the first time really that I acknowledged really what had happened to me. Maybe a few years before I thought maybe something, but I wasn't sure. But finally at that time, I was really able to go back into the pain of that time. And I wouldn't necessarily say it was an easy process, but I would say it was a blessed process. Because what came from that for me was an immense amount of healing. And I came to the day that you heard about, January 30th. It was about a year and a half after I first disclosed. I went through every part of a criminal process, which if I'll kind of put you through a little bit, but I went to the detective, I went to the sheriff department, I gave an interview, I had to do a lineup of pictures, I had to find out who he was. I then had to go and do a call to my perpetrator. I hadn't called him in 10 years. And I had to get, on the phone with him and try and get him to admit what he had done with the detective right there in the room with me. And let's just say it was probably one of the hardest days of my life. I remember waking up that morning just saying, God, you have to get me through this. You have to get me through this because there's no way I can get through it on my own. And God got me through it, right? I got him on the phone, and he actually admitted to what he had done. And the detective, we hung up the phone. He's like, "Okay, I'm gonna arrest him. We've got him on 3 counts." And I remember kind of just this little really, I have a story, and really, my voice is being heard, and really, somebody is paying attention finally. And 2 weeks later, he was arrested. It was paper on the news. And then a year later, he was actually convicted. And that day, again, I had to go to court on January 30th. And I got to court, excuse me, and I walk into a courtroom, and it's like cages, right? Orange suits, full of people. And I had to face him in court and tell the judge exactly my story and what had happened to me. Again, I was being asked my story. I was asked to give my voice. So I went in and, again, was scared to death and praying to God to just get me through this one next step. And I remember the night before that, I was crying, sobbing, saying, God, why did you give this to me? Why am I faced with this horrible, burden, this cross that I'm bearing right now? And can it just be done? Can it just be over? I don't want to deal with this anymore. And I got to the next day, and I got in front of the judge, and I spoke. And I walked out of that courtroom, and I felt that feeling when you suddenly realize why you just went through all that you had to go through, because you were meant to be heard, and you were meant to give a voice to something that's so wrong. And I walked out, and I just remember feeling, if I can just bring triumph to this trial, if I can just find a way to make this wrong a right, then it would be all worth it. So I walked out, and I did. I felt an immense amount of relief and healing that day, more than any other time as being arrested or whatnot. I felt heard. And I felt like I could actually move on with my life. So about a month after that, I was thinking about, in my process of sharing my story, of finding my own voice, how many other people shared their stories. I thought about how many times I mentioned to somebody, this had happened to me, and they said, yeah, that happened to me too. It was my uncle. It was my dad's boss in the mountains. It was my coach, my high school basketball coach. And these people didn't feel like they would be heard if they said anything. They didn't trust their own voice either. They felt the shame of being a victim, of having something happen to them. And I know that shame well because I lived with it for 12 years. And I thought, how can I help people? How can I help everybody just have the courage and the strength and the faith to get through this process, because the other side is so worth it. So I prayed a lot, and I really felt like God was calling me to start this organization called the Innocence Mission. And really, the idea is, and what we do and what I'm passionate about doing, is helping people give voice to this cause, helping people find a way to talk about it. It's an issue that, as you've probably heard over the week, affects way too many people. 1 in 4 girls, 1 in 6 boys, by the time they turn 16, are sexually assaulted, sexually victimized, and those are the ones we know about. This is a crime of secrecy. This is something that affects people that they don't want anybody to know. It's uncomfortable to talk about. It's uncomfortable to hear. I imagine some of you are uncomfortable right now. But imagine if we were able to find some kind of comfort in giving voice to it so that people could come forward, that it would be a lot of change in this issue. 90% of people don't disclose. That's our statistic. So we have a statistic that almost 25% of our nation is sexually victimized, and then only 10% actually come forward. So I was thinking a lot in the last 2 years about why this is. How can we help people disclose? How can we help them come forward? What does disclosure even mean? For me, I came forward because I heard that somebody else was being victimized, that something might be happening. And a lot of times that's why other people do come forward. But in my heart, I think, it's amazing to have the ability to come forward and talk to go to the justice system. Because if you go to the justice system and you go to a police officer or a DA, they can actually do something about it. They can actually, get the perpetrator and hold them to justice. But there are so many other ways to disclose too. And sometimes that starts just with acknowledging it to yourself. Sometimes it just starts with actually, like I did, actually having to realize that this happened to me. And it wasn't my fault. And I'm not to blame. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't ask for it. And that's just something that I think a lot of people forget in all of this. We feel like we did something wrong. So I was thinking, we need to find our voices. We need to find a way to empower ourselves to be able to come forward, whether it's our own story, and even if it's with sexual abuse or sexual assault, but it could be something else too. We all are faced with trials in this life. I feel like that is the Christian journey. And learning how to really have faith in God to help us through those moments. But a lot of it comes with having to speak out and come forward. And sometimes it's your friend, it's the person next to you who has something going on. And how do we help them find a voice? How do we give voice to them? So I realized it really is one simple act. And of course, it's an acronym. But it's acknowledging, connecting, trusting, and talking. So if we really start out and we're able to look at what happened to us, or what happened to somebody else, or what the injustice is, if we really acknowledge it. For me, when I was 28, that's when I had to say, oh my gosh, I have to acknowledge this now. It's happening to somebody else. It happened to me. I have to come forward and say something about it. When we take that moment and we acknowledge that there is something that's not right. And then we connect. And I was thinking about this word, I really think that we as Christians are called to connect more than anybody else. Our life is built on connection. It's built on connection to God and to Christ and to the Holy Spirit. It's built on connection to each other in community and fellowship. And it's built on connection to ourselves, to our self-love and our self-understanding and our self-awareness. And having that love of who we are as individuals. Because that's really the call of Christ. We're made in his image. And so we therefore love ourselves as much as he loves us too. And that's part of coming forward and giving voice to something so horrible as sexual assault. So connecting, and then trusting. I can't tell you how much trust it took me to come forward. I had to have trust in the legal system. I had to have trust in myself to get through it. I had to have trust in the fact that I was doing what was right. And then I had to talk. I had to really talk about it. And to a point that, it wasn't me anymore. Think about all the other, if I got robbed, let's say, I'd have no problem. I'd probably go down to the grocery store and be like, oh my gosh, I just got robbed. Like, you should know there's a robber, there's a burglar. It happens, something happened to me. But sexual assault, it's not something we go and we talk about. It's that painful. And it is unfortunately seen as shameful, but if we could change that stigma, if we could really get rid of shame and really allow people to feel like it is just like that robbery. Like, please talk about it so that we can help other people. Because the more people talk about it, the more it's going to go away. The more we're able to come forward and to get the help that we need, the more we're able to heal, the sooner we're able to heal, the sooner perpetrators are able to heal. We can help them too. If we continue to have it behind closed doors, I read studies and studies about perpetrators of sexual assault, and they have multiple victims. And I say multiple, you probably think 2, 3, maybe 5, maybe 10. We're talking 50, 100, sometimes 3,500 victims. What if that person, what if the first victim, what if the second victim actually had said something, come forward and disclosed? A lot of people don't know this either, but the justice system, the DA's office, prosecutors, they have more than one victim come forward. If they have 2 stories, they can usually have a much better time convicting for a long time with the case. So I just, encourage this idea of what it does mean to give voice and to come forward. And what that means too for us as Christians. I think, I was thinking about, there are hurdles and there are amazing gifts we're given to be able to fight this and to come forward. And one hurdle definitely can be the fact that I was thinking about this. I think that we can tend to forgive too easily sometimes. And I say that very, very carefully because I did that for 12 years because I thought I just wanted to forgive and move on. But what I learned is that was more like cheap forgiveness. I wasn't really coming to reconciliation. I wasn't really listening to the conversion of my heart towards forgiveness. I more just wanted to forget. And what this issue really needs is for us not to forget. We need to be able to get through it, to take one step at a time in the process of disclosure, of going to therapy, of finding true forgiveness in our hearts, and then we can truly move on. But I thought that by just keeping it a secret, that was my way of forgiving and letting go. So it's something that I wanted to definitely have people think about and to process. But the other great thing we have is hope. We have the hope of the cross, which to me is beyond amazing. this issue, child sexual abuse, sexual assault, is a dark issue, and I'm really awed that you all are here and you're all listening and you're all being open to listening to this, because it is a dark issue. It's hard to face. It's uncomfortable. I have a friend who has an organization, a great organization, called the Joyful Child Foundation. It's Erin Runyon. And she unfortunately has had to, her daughter was abducted at the age of 6, sexually assaulted, and then murdered. And so she started an organization that really works in role play and helping people, helping kids be able to fend off offenders and be able to find a way that they're able to protect themselves. But she said the hardest time is getting people to listen to the part about molestation. So how do we break that down? How do we find a way to face that? And I think it's with hope. It really is. It's with the encouragement that this can get better and that this can go away. This issue, if there's light shown on it, if we can shine a big bright light, we can make it better, and we can find a way to help children now and to help ourselves or survivors heal. And I think that those are our two calls, are really to heal and to come forward. So I wonder, I'm wondering if anybody has any questions right now, or is wondering about kind of the process of disclosure or whatnot.
Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Visit biola.edu to find out how Biola could make a difference in your life.